Who's got the juice? NFL Week 18. Time flies when you're having fun at the juice bar, Sean. Week 18,
yes,
playoff seedings, incentive week for props. A lot of interesting storylines. Still a couple of seedings to play out. In particular, which we'll talk out in a sec here, the NFC North. But biggest, juiciest story. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so
my
upset.
fault. I had to get that.
Sean's been on me. He's it hurts. It hurts. But I don't know. If the Bengals sneak in, does my AFC North rebuttal not have a little merit? It might have a little merit. That's
Maybe.
3 teams versus 3 teams. Okay. Who has the juice Week 18, all seriousness? I know where you're going, but talk to me about it.
Yeah, so mine is a little interesting because if you've been following, I've been on the Lions from before the season.
Yeah, all year.
I have slips on the Lions. I have slips for them to win the Super Bowl. I have slips for them to win the NFC. I have slips for them to win the division.
Would have had Hutch if he didn't get hurt.
And yes, and I have to say, right now, the Minnesota Vikings have the juice. That doesn't mean mean I think they're gonna win.
All right.
But when we're talking about momentum and feeling good, these guys will not go away. Anything they need to get done seems to work out in their favor. They go to Seattle. They are absolutely dead in the water. Done. I think it was third or fourth. I think it was fourth down. They get a face mask. Very next play on Sam Darnold on a sack.
Yeah.
They get to the quarterback, kill the play, get a face mask on the sack. Very next play, throws a touchdown to Jefferson up the sideline. They end up winning the game.
Gosh.
Then they absolutely just beat up on Green Bay early. They get a phantom offsides call at halftime that puts 3 points on the board. Game ends up being a 3-point game.
3-point spread, too.
Yeah.
Sick.
Then they're just in a position now where they have to go to Detroit and win. And guess what? Detroit is battered and bruised. And I really do not like what Campbell did in San Francisco.
Ran it up,
and just,
ran his guys.
He's just like it's the Super Bowl. Yo,
it was the Super Bowl.
He played that like it was the NFC Championship game. I don't understand that. And I get it. This is your style, and this is how you want to play, and he's Mr. Roll the ball out there, and we're going to show up. I get it. But, man.
As a Lions futures ticket holder, you didn't like it.
And how physical the game is, and this means zero. Nothing.
It didn't mean anything.
Didn't mean anything. Like, you could have went out there. They could have called him from Detroit and said, we're not showing.
Yeah.
And nothing happens.
Kicking and screaming forfeit?
Yes. So, I don't love that. It worked out. They got a big W. They continue to roll. But, man, something about this Minnesota. Put it like this. I put out a hedge on Minnesota a couple weeks ago because I was a little worried.
To your point of who has the juice and the timing, how about the Minnesota tabloids waiting to this week to say McCarthy may or may not be on the trade block, kind of doubling down, if you will, just good juju of the week in Minnesota on maybe Darnold being the guy. That's got to do something in the locker room coming off him getting showered with water and lifted up like Rudy.
Yeah. I mean, the vibes are high. Like, the vibes
they're
are
immaculate.
high.
I hate to say they're immaculate.
Yeah, the vibes are extremely high there. But
is it the best story in the NFL this year? I hate to say it. It is, isn't it?
Easy. Kevin O'Connell's going to win Coach of the Year.
San Diego State, by the way. Had to throw that in.
They were before the season. They were 7.5 point. Their win total was 7.5. They have they have 14 wins. So yeah, man. Right now,
all right,
I'm rooting for the Lions. All my money is on the Lions. I did put a little hedge in on the Vikings, but right now, to answer the question,
who has the juice?
It's the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, we're coming back to it because I need to talk it out with you. But who has the juice for me? I got to go with the Baltimore Ravens here. I mean, shout out Goodell for the unbelievable off-ball screen, giving the Steelers 3 games in 10 days, 11 days. But just free-falling real quick there in Tomlin land. And who's up top? An 18-point favorite on Saturday against Cleveland. They win. They ink a division title. It's incredible to start out 0-2, odds against you in such a competitive division and come out. Obviously, the convo beneath the convo of Baltimore is Lamar the MVP. But who's got the juice? If we're looking at anyone, this includes Buffalo to me. that's going to Arrowhead for a beer pong rebuttal, it's Baltimore. I don't see anybody else going to Arrowhead in the AFC except for this team.
Not Josh?
Not Josh. Not Josh. You could thank McDermott for a SoFi timeout down 2 scores in the worst Madden call I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I gotta disagree with you there because I've seen Josh do it. I've seen him go down there and compete.
Compete?
I've seen
Catch a dub.
Yeah, that's true.
We talked about this too. This is so gross. The Chiefs have too many buys right now. We're not even going to be talking about Chiefs. You want to talk about the opposite of Danny Campbell's approach? These dudes are resting, restored. They're working on. They're in hyperbaric chambers. They're in saunas. They are resting for January.
How many? They have like too many buys going.
They've locked the 1 seed up from Christmas. They don't have to play anyone this week. Then they're off another week. Then this is like old school. You're sitting there, process of elimination. Brady Belichick. Oh my gosh, the Patriots have to win 2 home games, and they're back in the Super Bowl, and one of them is going to be a wild card team. Happy to be there.
Yes.
This is just. It's. They got the juice, man.
To recap it, Chiefs played on Christmas Day. They then lock up the 1.
Yeah.
They don't have Mahomes and the big boys, Chris Jones, Kelsey, they can all rest, don't have to play. Then they get the bye.
So
that's built into the 1.
2.5? Christmas was a Wednesday. 2.5 weeks.
Full weeks for guys
before the
to
playoffs.
Prep, get their bodies right, and then show up at home.
So they got the real juice.
Wake up cozy at the crib.
Taylor
Taylor Swift next to you.
The only thing there is, do you have too much time off to where there's rust versus rest? That convo. That's the only. So they have the real juice, but coming into Week 18, I got to give it to Baltimore to just battle back to the top of the division, take care of Pittsburgh, take care of Houston.
No doubt.
So let's go to New York football.
Sure.
Drew the anti-lock for number 1. I don't know where you put this on the punishment scale for New York football Giants fans. Just thank God Sirianni is pulling Saquon, because I don't know if Giants fans could lose.
Is that where you're at on Saquon?
Well, I'm just like, can Giants fans get a break? It's like,
L,
so you lose the number 1 overall pick, and then your ex is going to break the Dickerson record that no one can break on the last week. You lose the 1 seed. That's as low as it gets. But in all seriousness, let's start Jets and then Giants. Anything, just New Year's wish in lieu of coming into the new year here, you're wanting for first Giants and then briefly on Jets if you want to go 1-2.
Yeah, I would say just find the direction, man. Build inside out. Neighbors is a real guy.
Pro Bowl alternate.
When you're watching ball, at least how I watch it is like, especially live, certain players look different than others.
Yeah.
He caught that screen,
and
I'm like, this is 8-yard pickup.
No.
And then it was 15. And then it was 20. And I'm like,
and then it was to the crib.
He's going to take this to the house? there's certain guys there's not very many guys that could do that. So when you're watching some of these games and you want to decide, can people really play? Your eyes will tell you, what's going on. Him to take that to the house, he's just a different caliber player. What you watch Justin Jefferson, different caliber player. The routes that he's running, different caliber, right?
It was going to be real quick. You're going to have that Burrow, Jefferson, Chase trio in the greatest debate with Jaden Daniels, Neighbors, and Brian Thomas one day, because those two are next up at wide receiver.
So,
anyways.
Yes. So just get some direction. You got a number 1 at wide receiver, similar to the Jets and Garrett Wilson. Figure out what you want to do at the quarterback position.
Do you clean house? Are you, if you had a wish, if you're running like GM here for the Giants, give me a move or 2.
Listen, I'm very familiar with this situation with being a Bears fan. If you go get a quarterback, you need to clean house, because this is what happens if you don't. If you draft a quarterback with a lame duck coach,
that's what Dable is.
The coach. Well, if they don't have a lot of success, the coach gets fired, the GM gets fired, and then the new staff comes in and they have this built-in leverage of, I didn't pick that kid. We're not having success because you guys got this kid that wasn't my guy. So you want to be united across. Honestly, for me, you want to be united across GM, coach, quarterback. because the GM that picks the quarterback is going to do everything in his saving grace to make sure that guy succeeds because your name is attached to him.
It's a great point. I feel Dable got put in a thankless job, though, with this dude, Joe, who's somehow still employed.
Sure.
Who passed on, who did the Saquon negotiations, the worst you could have done. And then again, can't say he fumbled the draft when you go after neighbors, but just disappointing. Not quite Joe Douglas disappointing for Jets fans, but disappointing.
But, I would say this. Me and you see that. Everyone knows that Dable can coach. Everyone knows the situation he was in.
Via Josh Allen, that's where he came from.
Yes, you guys signed Daniel Jones. You gave him a bunch of money, let go Saquon. And what Dable, but I still think if you're going to go get a quarterback, I think you need to reset.
Here's what's fickle, though. Drew Lock goes out and turns into Tom Brady. They win the game they shouldn't. You now lost out. If the standings hold, you lost out on Shedeur and Cam Ward. I'm seeing mocks that have them going with a corner because they're in that 5th, 6th. Right now, I think they're 5th or 6th. They won that game and cooked themselves out of 2 quarterbacks. So now what do? Are you talking about trading assets? If there's a New Year's wish, are you trading assets to move up?
Is it
Will
New
be
England
Travis.
up there?
So,
New England.
So the order right now is New England,
So they're not
Tennessee,
picking a quarterback.
Cleveland, Giants, Jacksonville.
My fault. One more time.
It's New England, Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants, Jacksonville.
So Tennessee and Cleveland could go Shedeur, Cam, and just unless they want to stick with Mr. Mayonnaise.
Not they can. They would if it finished like that, they would 100% go Shedeur, Cam.
So then what are we doing here for a New Year's wish? Put a button on it for the Giants. That's
a bad situation.
It's a terrible situation.
Well, don't you look ahead to Arch Manning then?
You punt the full season and look ahead.
Punt it.
Well, no,
you can't do that in this city.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Why not?
Just you mean because he's not eligible till next year? You're saying.
Yeah.
So you're saying another.
If you don't think you can get a guy this year, and you're not confident you can get a top coach,
you're right there. Just lose on Sunday. Drew Lock cooked this whole thing.
This is the issue with.
It's the biggest accidental win. That's really an L in the history.
If you're third is a great spot to be because then you're selling your pick for Travis Hunter. Because you got 2 QBs going ahead.
You got 2 QBs and then you
the most highly valued third pick of all time.
New England, maybe.
Yeah, but now,
Perfect.
And then you got an aggressive Raiders team that might work their way into that too because they're desperate for a quarterback. Let's talk Jets because we are feeling the energy of New York football. It appears via headlines.
The Enigma. Have you watched it yet?
I've watched it twice. No, I'm just kidding.
Yo, for everybody watching, if you like Aaron Rodgers, first of all, I think everyone should watch Enigma. I think it was really
you're
interesting.
A fan? Oh, okay,
now
cool.
Listen. If you like Aaron Rodgers, you'll like him a little more.
Yeah.
If you hate Aaron Rodgers, you will hate him a little more by watching The Enigma. So I think it's worth watching either way.
Just while I have you, because you're a Bears fan and lived with them in the division for a decade and a half. Did you like the doc? You said interesting.
Well, I've said this on Wax so many times. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback for me I've ever seen. Period, bar none. The greatest quarterback of all time is Tom Brady, but the best overall quarterback play I've ever seen is Aaron Rodgers for me. So I'm a fan of his. Go watch Enigma. I thought it was worth watching, but
bringing it back to the Jets. Are you partnering with them?
I think you have to.
You do.
Yeah.
I've really been reluctant to come around on it. I don't want them to.
He's too big of a.
He's a distraction.
He's too big of a personality if you're going to try to reset. Because they need to rebuild.
They do need to rebuild.
He's not going to.
Here's one.
You're not going to rebuild with him in the building. He's not going to have that. And it's a disaster.
All right, let me throw you an all-time line here.
We'll go to the Giants?
Took the words out of my mouth. Aaron Rodgers from the Jets to the Giants.
Green and blue?
I'm saying, if you are going to lose out on Cam Ward and Shedeur, Drew Lock or Aaron Rodgers as a safety net. Let's just say that out loud.
I do want to say this.
It's got to be Aaron Rodgers.
We talked about this before here on the Juice Bar as well.
This is getting exhausting.
He came to the Jets, and it was going to work if the defense was the best unit. The defense was garbage.
Yeah. So was the coaching.
If you look at his play and his numbers, they're not that like I still think he has some in the tank.
Sean, they're better than every Jet since freaking Pennington.
Yeah. So the defense failed Aaron Rodgers.
So
fans
the
and
Jets
overall
failed Aaron Rodgers.
organization.
Aaron Rodgers didn't fail the Jets.
I lean that way, yes.
Irreconcilable differences?
I lean well. Obviously, we know what happened the first year. It was just an unlucky break.
Of course.
If that doesn't happen, I think this whole situation is a lot different. But it did happen, and I think he tried his best to play his top level ball, and then they were essentially asking him to go score 27 points a week, and he didn't have that.
Has a quarterback with no wife and no coach ever done anything? I don't. That was an impossible ask. He had no support. And again, to your point, he put up the numbers. I'm disappointed that we're never going to get the real product test run.
Yeah.
We looked at all the blueprints. The architecture looked great. Everything looked phenomenal. And then we go to build and we're like, oh my gosh, we lost our lead constructor. Anyways, from my perspective, I would love to see Aaron Rodgers stay in New York. He just doubled down on his New Jersey home. He'd like to stay. I don't think this guy with a serviceable offensive line, which is not on the New York Giants either, is a washed QB. I still don't think it. This guy, I mean, this sounds outrageous, but if you put him on like a San Francisco 49ers, does he not win 10 games?
I agree.
So this is going to be fascinating what's going to happen with these two. Back to Lions-Vikings. Anything I kind of want to get your thoughts just betting-wise. It's a 2.5-point line, Lions at home. You obviously mentioned a little bit of hedge here.
Yeah.
This is not a normal scenario where you're dropping as the loser from the 1 seed to you got to go next week on the road and go wild card like you're some 9-8, 10-7, happy to be their club, like 2/3 of the AFC wild cards. No offense to the Broncos. This team in Detroit, I think, has way more to lose than the Vikings do. I think the Vikings, again, to your point earlier, already overexceeded their pay grade. This is all the pressure on the line. So my question is there any bad, juju from, like you said, with the Niners, putting these guys in positions where they're maybe coming in a little tired, a little fatigued, and a mountain of pressure on them?
Yeah, there's definitely that situation, and that's kind of what I was getting at when I talked about I didn't like the way Campbell handled the Niners situation. The knock on Campbell is everything is a little, like, there's not enough planning.
Yeah.
This seems a little too willy-nilly, like these decisions, right? They're massive decisions. So, I mentioned it. I think the Vikings have the juice. Flip a coin on who wins the game. Massive for both, because going to Minnesota is probably the toughest place to play in the NFL right now, maybe outside of Arrowhead. Whoever wins that game, I think, wins the NFC. It's a massive,
that was my next question.
Yeah.
Who wins this game wins the NFC?
Because I don't see any teams in the NFC that could go on the road and beat those guys.
Do you start to factor in from a futures perspective Philly if they don't have to go to Detroit, rather Minnesota? Are they maybe I don't say dark horse, but are they a third team in consideration out of the NFC if the Vikings win?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, of course, but
I like to work backwards if we can.
I'm very confident Minnesota wins 2 games in their building and Detroit wins 2 games in their building. I don't care who it's against in the NFC.
Wow.
Yeah.
There it is. Who's got the juice? Week 18.